Pharaoh has already determined some 40 years ago, 80 years ago, to begin to make their life miserable. And now here they are in a bondage situation, and God's talking about his armies. There's no chariots. There's no spears. It's a bunch of bricklayers. There's a bunch of servants. And God says, I'm about to put the whoop on Egypt so I can bring forth mine armies. Can I just tell you, it's not God's fault that they were captive. Wasn't God's fault that they were slaves. And can I tell you today that most people in America are captive today? Amen. You think you have freedom, and you don't. You think that you're a free person, and you're not. You think that you have freedom to do this and freedom to do that, but let me ask you the question, then why don't you? If you were really free, you probably wouldn't get up when you did, go where you go, come home when you do. See, we're fooled by everything. And I'm not talking about our government. Although our government has really gotten smart. They realize we would never pay the amount of taxes that we pay if they send us a bill at the end of the year. In fact, we wouldn't write a check if they sent it at the end of the month. So they take out our taxes before we ever see it. Most people, they say, oh, the government, $40,000. Why is that? Because they're in a unique situation where somebody didn't take it out ahead of time and they ain't writing the check. But the government's going to get their money. You could hire J.K. Harris or Dewey, Cheatham and Howe or whoever else you think you're going to. Somehow, some way, the government's going to get their money. And listen, and then you think you're free. Drive down the road and don't put on your seatbelt. I know that you'll be a heinous criminal. You'll be jeopardizing the neighborhood. Folks may die at your very passing, but don't buckle your seatbelt and watch what happens. Don't put that little sticker in just scrape the stickers off your windshield and see how far you get. I'm free, I'll do whatever I want to. Mm-hmm. You'll do as you're told. Go somewhere in a hurry. And you will promise to appear in court. Or Brother Ted will meet you in defensive driving, amen? That's a good brother right there, you know. I don't remember how many, that was seven years ago. Brother Ted and I sitting in a Golden Corral on a Saturday having defensive driving together, amen. What a blessing that was. Listen, that's a brother right there. But we talk about having freedom, and we've kind of gotten ourselves in a mess. We have judges legislating from the bench. We allow people, God says, thou shalt not kill. And they're killing babies by the millions. And they pick and choose which laws they're going to enforce. Here's what I don't understand. I can't quite figure out how it is that everybody pitches a fit every time a soldier dies, and it's a horrible tragedy every time a soldier dies on a foreign land. But friend, I'll tell you that more people die in America because of drunk drivers every year than have died in the entire Iraqi and Afghan war combined. Every year. But we're going to pick and choose. And you can't find a police officer in the middle of the night to come whenever you hear something going crazy or somebody rifling through your stuff in the middle of the night. And that's because they all work the day shift up and down Main Street taking care of those heinous criminals without the stickers and without the seatbelts on. Keeping America safe. Be careful how free you really think you are. Our freedoms are being challenged every single day, even down to the point where we could open up our Bibles and read the last half of Romans chapter 1 and it would be considered a hate crime. By the way, you need to find out who your Congress people are and give them a shout, give them an email, fax them a letter. It's not that hard to find out, and just speak out. If God said it, it ought to be all right. We ought to be able to read this from cover to cover. I'll tell you what, if somebody found out you took a Koran and accidentally dropped it on the ground, you're likely to go to prison as a hate crime, but you could take a stack of Bibles and flush them in the toilet and nobody would flinch. Yeah, that's right. We're losing America. Better keep your eye on the road. Better pay attention about what's going on around us. You say, are we supposed to take to the streets? I'm persuaded we'd do well to probably take to our knees. Amen. Better start praying. And then we better go vote. And we better live right. God didn't say, hey, if you can just straighten out the bad guys. It's not what he said. He said, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then he'll hear from heaven. Then he'll begin the process to heal our land. We can stop worrying about the bad guys, y'all. It ain't the bad guys' fault. It's our fault. The Egyptians didn't travel to a faraway, all around the planet and with butterfly nets and bring these people in. Listen, they began to intermix with the heathen. They began to put themselves in bad situations. They turned their back on God. And when the good guys turn their back on God, the good guys get spanked every time. And it takes generation after generation to ever get it fixed. Here they are, a captive people in Egypt. Egypt is, was, and always will be a picture of sin. Amen. And here they are, captive to sin. Do you realize today that church families are captive to sin? Don't get quiet on me. Folks that work for the FBI will tell you whenever they investigate and look for evidence in a computer, many times, disgustingly many times, where they find the child pornography, right next to it's their Sunday school lessons. Right next to it is their email from their preacher and how they fellowship together. Or it might be the preacher. You better figure out, perverts know where your kids are. All kinds of, we hear about wicked situations all the time. When we go preach in prison, we've met deacons, Sunday school teachers, preachers, associate pastors. You go through, I'm talking about straight up in prison, doing hard time for terrible, heinous crimes. Don't worry about the bad guys. Better worry about your guys. It's us guys that we got to worry about. If we'll do the right thing. Here they are, these people who get infatuated. I mean, you think about Lot who pitched his tent towards Sodom. Next thing you know, he's a man at the gate, greeting people as they come in. When all of a sudden somebody said, hey, a couple of new guys came into Lot's house. They knew where Lot lived. And he didn't have enough sense to protect his family. He didn't have enough sense to put that situation together. As a matter of fact, after God dragged them out by their hands, wife, he still couldn't make it, got turned to a pillar of salt. Then the daughters didn't even have enough sense to say, hey, Daddy, what about Uncle Abraham? What about your Uncle Abraham? You said he was God's man. Why don't we go with them? No. They took matters into their own hand. Then we ended up with perverse generations. And that was righteous Lot. That was the best that there was in the land. It's a mess. It would have only taken for 10 people. If God could have found 10 people in Sodom, he would have spared Sodom. You think about Lot, Lot's wife, 2 daughters, a couple other daughters and their husbands. That's 8. Only 2 more to save Sodom, and they couldn't do that. By the way, how many is it going to take to save Grand Prairie? How many is it going to take to save Texas? How many is it going to take to save America? I don't know, bless God, but we better try to reach them all.